Good evening, I'm Will Gardner, and tonight I'm joined with Senator Joe Miller from the great city of Park River, North Dakota. He represents District 10, and I think that includes Langdon and Cavalier and Walhalla. And so, Joe, thanks for coming tonight, and appreciate you taking some time to discuss some pretty important issues with me in regards to this week in the legislature. There's been a lot of action in the legislature this weekend, and this entire week. And so I want to get your feedback on a few issues. First, I think some people should know a little bit about you. This is your second term, I believe.
Yes.
That you've
first elected in 2008, and I was re-elected in 2012. And so I'm nearing the completion of my second term.
That was a that was a difficult election, that second one, because I think you were jammed in with some another senator, and there was just nothing that could be done about it. But you came on ahead of that at a pretty young age, and now I believe you're married now.
Yeah, I married Ashley Bentz, who's a chiropractor, and she works here in Bismarck. But once we get done with the session, we're gonna move home and then start a little family. We got the baby coming on the way. So
that's excellent. I have a few of my own, so it's a great road to go down. And anyway, Joe, let's get right to it. The biggest concern, I'm a small business owner myself, and one of the things that goes through my head all the time is this budget, and the oil in particular for the typical business person, but in relation to how that affects the legislature today is the budgeted money that is set aside, or that is coming in from the oil revenues. That I heard projections right now dropping from $8 billion in the governor's budget roughly to now around $4 billion. Can you speak to how that affects you as a legislature, and how when you see these bills come across, how it affects you and the decisions you need to make on the bills that you see?
Like my general philosophy in government has always been, if a bill is necessary and proper, and if spending is necessary and proper for the function of good government, then it needs to be funded or it needs to be passed. And even though today we're in a contractionary period, with the governor's budget address in December, I think every legislator, when he or she heard that address, they knew that it's off, because it's made in summer, and we already saw the writing on the wall. The oil prices were coming down, and we knew that we were not going to have the same amount of oil revenue coming in. Every dollar drop is significant in the price of oil, is a significant drop in the taxes we collect on oil in North Dakota.
But I think the people should be at least aware that a lot of the functions and the programs that we have currently in place, most of them are not affected by this budget.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. There's really, make no mistake about it, there's no need for the people in North Dakota to be concerned that we're going to be running a budget shortfall or something of that matter. There's plenty of money to fund government. It's just how will legislators and the governor prioritize that money. That's what's going to make a difference. And we're going to have to reprioritize things. Some things that we would have liked to have funded, perhaps things like a new governor's mansion that are being kicked around. Some of those building projects might have to be put on hold for a while until things pick back up again. But we're going to be able to still fund government properly, necessary.
You had just mentioned that there would be no funding for things that aren't proper, so that are you going on the record by saying there's no marijuana, no free marijuana for the people in North Dakota?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing that.
But on a serious note, that is a bill that's coming up. I believe that's in the House right now. It probably hasn't come over to your side. Have you been hearing anything about that, I guess, with your colleagues? Or
I haven't heard any senators really discussing the matter. I imagine they don't expect it to make it over to our chamber, and that's probably why nobody's thinking about it. But my personal feelings on medical marijuana are if it's truly beneficial, then it's probably useful. But you look at what's happened in California and the abuse of the medical marijuana law. It's not necessarily being used for medicinal purposes. People do things to kind of get around that. And so you need to look at it from a rational sense. Do we want to be like Colorado and just open it up, or do we want to keep our current prohibition?
And when I've traveled to Colorado, it's at least it's a good joke when you travel there. The people are, it's kind of pretty lighthearted when we get to discuss that kind of stuff. But people, they have I've heard that they've had a need for it, and so it'll be interesting to see, because I know that you do have people that are really pushing for it because of the basically they feel that's their right to be able to have that, and I guess they mostly point towards the pain that they're having, and so I guess it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. There was that happened this week on I believe that was Tuesday or Wednesday. They had some discussion on that, and so there were some people that had come out for that. The other big thing that was I guess you could say it was a lot of drama in the room was with the Common Core.
Hallways were full.
Yeah, and there were banners and signs and a lot of passionate people talking about the issue. What in that particular instance, the House committee for that subcommittee did vote against that by a narrow margin as far as the recommendation. But I've already seen this session that even though that there wasn't a due pass on that, there have been resolutions and bills that have passed, even though the committees are recommending one way or the other. If that does come out of committee, and well, it already has, if it comes out of the House with a do not pass, and it still passes the House, and it comes over to the Senate, do you think that, is that a cut and dry issue right now for you, or are you still open to passing?
I want to hear the debate. I unfortunately couldn't make it over to the House hearing because I have my own hearings that I have to attend to, but it's certainly something that I'm going to pay great attention to, because I have many constituents that are worried about what Common Core can do to the state of North Dakota and our education system. I have some constituents that are teachers and that seem to feel that it's probably okay too. And I think where the teachers are coming from, they see the standards in some of the curriculum as maybe not so bad, and they've read it, they've used it, they think it's okay, and that's fine. But my main point is, I do not want our educational standards being connected to some national standard or national compact. That's the word I'm looking for.
There's a lot of talk about the different origins of where the Common Core curriculum has come from, and who's in charge of it, and who's changing that curriculum. I know in the private Catholic schools, they've adopted little pieces of it, I believe because of pressure myself, but I believe, well, I know for a fact that they are certainly not implementing a lot of the social standards that are coming on the pike. Do you think that this could be a corridor for pushing a social agenda down the road?
Well, yes, if we're losing control of what we can actually teach in our classrooms, then it certainly could become a vehicle for that. And that's why we need to make sure that the parents and the teachers in local school districts, as well as the state, are in control, and no one else. North Dakota can be in charge of its own destiny. We don't need anyone from outside telling us what we should and shouldn't do.
Another big news item that I guess it was yesterday, there was I'm going to make sure I get his name right, Kevin Malacher?
Malacher, I don't know if that's exactly the right pronunciation. I'm sorry.
I may
apologize to Dr. Malacher.
Yes, he was confirmed by the Senate today, or yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
To become a board member on the State Board of Higher Education. That was the one vote I was referencing, where they had come out of committee saying do not pass, or that's right language.
Yeah, do not confirm.
Do not confirm, and he in fact did get confirmed, but it was a very tight margin, and it wasn't without a lot of back and forth, I guess you could say.
A little bit of passion, debate. I think the people that ultimately voted for the nominee they were people that knew him personally, or had some sort of connection to him, and he's an accomplished individual, and he's a very intelligent individual, and that's That's the kind of people you want on a board. But at the same time, there were some people saying, well, he hasn't been there very long. He's only been there on 7 months. Let's give him some time. A person who's very intelligent and who's been paying attention, reading the newspapers in North Dakota is going to understand that there are issues in higher ed, in the legislature, and what need in that relationship that we have, and things that need to be done. So for him to come in and feel like he's unsuspecting of what kind of questions are being asked seems a little disingenuous.
Right. And when I had seen that I thought, well, maybe he's just a new candidate. No, he was actually appointed back in early spring, I believe June or July of last year, and so he's had all this time to learn up a little bit some of that information, and that was one of the comments of one of the, I believe it was Kelly
Armstrong
out in Dickinson, who had some concerns, and so that he couldn't answer those questions. So I guess we'll see the drama with the higher education stuff. I guess it just continues again. But I think maybe it needs to be more communication. Maybe my guess is what needs to happen in that.
Well, I think we need strong leadership from the top. We need the governor who needs to really step up in these matters, and when he makes a nominee, he needs to probably sit that person down and talk to him personally and tell him, this is what the legislature is going to expect of you, and you need to be ready for it. And we have seen very tumultuous activity in higher ed. We fired the chancellor, against my better judgment.
With a whole bunch of money going out the door with it.
Yeah, and that's not the first time that's happened. And so we have to get a handle on this, and we need a leader. And the leader can't be dispensable. It has to be the governor. He's the only person on top that can really rein this in.
Right. Turning a little bit more to what I think is a good topic for everyone, or a feel-good topic. It feels like there was a lot of support for the civics exam that had passed. Something has passed, and it has now become law that I believe there's maybe an exemption for next year, but at some point, these high school students have got to start understanding and learning about their government, and I think that's a great idea. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was something that North Dakotans, it wasn't really too much of a partisan issue at all. I mean, you get a couple on both sides, but it's a good thing. It's a simple thing that we can do, and just that reassurance that we're doing a decent job teaching people about how government functions. And if it's an important thing that we have to make foreigners who want to become citizens of this country take, then I think every citizen should take it. And I personally, I'm a social science major. I love history. I love how the government functions. Studying that, it's very important to me. I put a high value on history and that understanding. It's very important to the human nature and to the broader understanding. And when you come into America, it makes you understand why we think the way we do.
And on that note, you probably have seen, at least in the times I've been up here to the Capitol, a lot of kids running around, youth. Seems like I think probably some of them are made to come, some of them, it's a fun day, but have you gotten to talk to any of those young people yet, or has anyone from Park River area come up yet?
Some people that came, sometimes I miss them when they come because we just get so bogged down in committee, and people get delayed, buses get delayed, or they don't get here on time, and so you don't know where they are, and you miss people, so unfortunately. But I always meet some kids from someplace in North Dakota. They're walking through the chamber, and they might sit with you on the floor, and that's a really good thing for them. It's a good thing for us. Lets us engage them a little bit and keep interested in the process. And for me, when I was in high school, I came here a couple times, and it was something that I loved. I've loved politics all my life, and so it just kept me interested.
Right. So finally, Joe, I was going to ask you about this legislation that was going to possibly change the times that you meet in session. Right now, it's once every 2 years, and I know that there was some discussion about changing it so that it'd be meet every year. There were some details. I don't want to get too bogged down in the details of what would be done in each year, but that was something that was discussed. It didn't pass. I kind of thought that was a good thing, though, because there's just so much that comes up. Can you maybe tell us your opinion on that proposed legislation that I think that failed, and also maybe describe a little bit about some of the stuff that happens in off session that you guys can actually do work on?
And years ago, the session used to be 50 to 60 days, and now we're up to 80 days. And quite frankly, the legislation was unnecessary to pass in order for us to go to an annual session, but it seems like the only place for us to have that discussion is here in the chamber. So we need a bill, basically, to have that discussion. And I supported it because as a farmer, it's difficult for me to continue to do this job as being a senator and farm when we're pushing out into May 5th and way out into the beginning of May. I'm starting to roll in the field come April 15th sometimes. And one year it was in the end of March we were going. And so that kind of stuff makes me nervous. Can I continue to do this as my farm grows and as my family grows? So
you had a different need for it, but was the intention of the bill, do you believe that it was because of the amount of work that had been done between sessions?
You look at what South Dakota does. They have two similar situation, similar size state and everything. They meet every year and they have a budget session where they make changes to budget policy. And there's other states that do different things. There's all kinds of things that we can do. I think there is getting to be a need to meet every year. I think what we need to do is we need to try and refocus and reorganize how we manage this. We want to keep it open and make sure that anyone can come in right now. Anyone can introduce a bill, a legislator. You know, you can have your legislator introduce a bill. It has a hearing and gets a vote on the floor. And we don't want to compromise that.
Right.
But
now, you talked about the fact that you are a farmer, and so that is why that bill means more to you. Can you talk about some of the farm bills that you are looking at and are concerned about as a farmer? I'm guessing that's probably something that you are probably focused on.
We have fewer bills related to agriculture in these years than probably in years past because it's just, things are going pretty good right now. And it's probably more settled issues in a lot of things. One law is the anti-corporate farming law, like corporations that are non-family owned, and we have a degree of kinship, so it's brothers and sisters and first cousins, and then that's...
So it's family, but it's extended?
It's extended to first cousins, and that's where it cuts off.
Okay.
And so you can incorporate as a family farm, but you can't bring in other partners from wherever. And so that inhibits the ability to generate capital. And a lot of these capital-intensive operations like dairies or swine operations are falling by the wayside here in North Dakota. We're losing our dairy herd. We used to have 41,000 dairy cows in North Dakota at the beginning of the millennium. Now we have 16. And that multiplier effect as we lose dairy head is we start losing processors.
Where does all that milk go?
People drink it. Yeah. There's
where does it not go?
More fluid milk and cheese being consumed in North Dakota than ever before because we have more people than ever before. But also we have a lot of young people and they drink milk and eat cheese and pizzas and what have you.
Well, if population is growing and the dairy is dropping, I guess that's why we have dairy prices the way they are.
And that's part of it. But we're having to import milk from South Dakota or wherever else just to meet our processors' demands. The people that make the milk we consume and the cheese.
Right. And so this corporate bill is going to help with?
Yeah. What it will do is it'll create a carve out, tweak this law so that a corporation can own a dairy or a swine farm, and
right. Instead of mom and pop having to afford
yeah, and
machines.
yeah, the thing is mom and pop don't raise dairies, cattle anymore. That time of sitting there on a stool milking a cow that's gone. I mean, we're getting into robotics and everything now.
Right. Well, that sounds like at least some hope for some improvement on the dairy side and the egg side.
The value-added component to livestock for other agriculture, you know, the soybeans, the corn, and the pigs and dairy cattle consume lots of corn and soybeans. And so that adds value to the crops I raise, corn and soybeans. And what it does is it diminishes those basis numbers that start to form when we don't have access to dairies nearby that will buy this. Sometimes you go into Illinois or Iowa, the market price says $6, but they're paying $6.20. Whereas here we're paying $5.20. We're losing a lot of money just in those numbers because we don't consume enough ourselves. And you got to put it on a rail car that sometimes we don't get.
They're all plugged up with all of those stuff that we're shipping in.
Yeah, all the oil, you know.
Right. So, well, maybe those trains will be slowing down, as it sounds like. Do you think there's any hope for a big rebound in the oil? I know you probably don't know more than the average person listening to the news. Possibly, maybe you do have some information that's a little more. They could give us a little more feedback on what you think the oil.
I think right now you ask 3 different brokers, you're going to damn near get 3 different answers, and so that's the problem. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. Of course, the price of oil and grain and everything's going to go back up. When, I can't say.
Right.
I hope it goes up soon because I need to sell some grain.
That sounds good. And my father as well would be very happy with some better grain prices as well. Joe, thank you very much for meeting with us.
Yeah.
And hope you'll be looking forward to watching the videos that we have in the future for the evening here at the Capitol.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
And have a good night.